a note-taking sheet. There's a couple of things about this sheet that you should know. One, on Monday, you're going to rely on your note sheet. I'm going to give you some things that you need to know. Also, it gives you blank spaces so you can sketch stuff out. And at the end of this note-taking sheet, there's 2 pages, 4 sketches, and I expect you to do them. You don't have to do them after today, though. We will do them starting Wednesday, I think. So, today we're going to make slab vessels, coil pots, pinch pots. We're going to learn to score and slip. So you should write those things down so you have a reference for them. I will repeat them as we go. Things that you need for this project: a wood knife, a serrated rib, some sort of a wire tool. You need a needle tool, whatever shape or size that looks like. That's probably it. You will need some sort of a building board. Okay, you can grab one from over there. Actually, you're going to get your cupboards at the end of class, your shelves. And we are, what, A4. So you have a full shelf over here, or full cupboard over here. And then if you look back, you see the A4, it's an A2, A4. You get the 3 bottom shelves in that cupboard. And it's 3 people to a shelf. So it gets a little bit tight, but it is what it is. So, and at the end of class, you'll get that. You'll get a board, you'll get a bag, you'll put them on your shelf so you're ready to work on Monday. All right, so you know what tools? Oh, you're gonna need some slip. Slip. S-L-I-P. Slip is runny clay. And that'll work. There will be buckets of slip for you on Monday. If you ever run out of slip, there's almost always a bucket of really wet clay over here in the corner. Okay. You can also make your own. You can just grab some dry clay and put some water in it. So, okay. You're also going to need a chunk of clay. You may use just one. You may use one in a little bit. That'll be kind of up to you. So some things we're going to start with. I'm going to start by wedging about half of this. And I'm going to throw a slab. So I'm going to wedge this. Okay, you see how my fingers are up, not clenching. It's nice and controlled, nice and mellow. Roll that up on itself. Okay, and I'm going to throw out a slab. Now, my coils were this way, left and right. I'm going to throw out a slab this way. And I want them to go drop down. And that will make it so that it compresses those coils instead of unravels those coils. Don't believe me, if you throw it out this way, you'll have a long piece of clay that doesn't want to stretch outward. So, and we're going to throw this down. Size-wise, doesn't really matter right now. So we're looking for just a slab like this. I'm going to rotate it. So if you see what I'm doing, I'm flipping it every time. Okay, I call that flip and roll. So we're going to roll it this way. It's nice and controlled. It's hitting the back part and just spreading out. And if my definition of a slab is a universally thin or thick piece of clay, and I want it to be about that thick, okay, we're going to throw it out. Now, I'm going to show you how we get there if you're still struggling with throwing out a slab, which some of you might be on Monday, and it's fine. So we're going to set this over there. It's going to hang out over there. I'm going to wedge this one up. How many of you have spent more than like 30 minutes throwing out slabs and wedging? No one, right? Because this is we've only done it one day. Right. Okay, so coils towards me. I'm gonna drop this. Remember, it's clay. If you start off and it's like, oh, I threw that wrong, set that down, pat it down. It's just clay. Worst thing you can do, go throw in the recycle bin, grab another chunk, okay? Down and towards you. Now, if you're getting a little mound in the middle, it's because you're dropping it straight down. And sometimes when we have things in our way, instead of coming out here, we don't want to hit that, so we just drop it. So make sure you're moving stuff out of your way and then throwing it. But what happens if we get here and you're like, I can't get it any thinner, or there's that mound. And every time I start throwing it, it's sticking and it's ripping and it's just frustrating. So here's a little solution for you. First, you're going to lift it. You always lift it before you manipulate it. So we lift it. Then we're going to come over here and we're going to grab one of these rolling pins. Okay? So write this down, take mental note, whatever works for you. Grab a rolling pin, we're going to lift it. Now, when we roll this out, you never start on the outside and move in. You start on the inside or the middle and move out. Okay, so I'm going to start here. And I'm just going to push that out. I'm going to pull that towards me. And then I'm going to lift it. I can throw it straight down. I can rotate it. I can flip it over. You decide what that looks like. So first rule, always lift it off the table before you start to roll it. Second is always start in the middle and move away and then towards you. Third, never try to make it the thickness you want all at once. If you come in here and it's 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches thick, and you try to push it down to 1/4 inch thick, you're going to rip everything apart. So a little at a time. And then fourth, if you want, once you get it down a little bit, you can grab 2 of these little measuring sticks. Why would I grab those?
So it can't go lower.
So it can't go lower than that. So middle again, push it out, pull it towards me. And now I have pretty much the same slab as I just threw. Okay? Make sure you lift that up. Oops, it's stuck a little bit. That'll be okay for today. So any questions there? Okay, that's something you should consider. And on Monday, when some of you are struggling and going through it, and help each other out, talk to each other. Okay, scoring and slipping. To score is to make marks on our clay. So it's like Velcro, little X's. So I'm going to make some marks coming this way. On one side, I'm going to show you my needle tool marks. On the other, I'm going to show you my serrated rib marks. And then I'm going to pass that around so you can kind of see. So pass that around. Anything that's going to touch and be put together has to be scored and slipped. So I have 2 pieces here, and I want them to create a corner like this. Okay? They have to be scored and slipped. So I'm going to come in here where they're touching. I'm going to score it. I'm going to grab a little bit of slip, put it on there. And then I'm going to put it together. Yeah, so you see they start to go together. Okay, scoring and slipping. Now, here's the word for the day. You ready? Compression. Clay likes to be compressed, or we like to add compression to clay. And the reason for that is I can take, without scoring and slipping, 2 pieces of clay, and if I squeeze it together, compress it, the clay particles and the water particles will squish and become one. Okay, so I can make that good. As we're going, if you don't learn to score and slip though, leather hard clay doesn't compress. It doesn't compress like workable clay. So we've got to learn this. If I make a mug and it's leather hard and I go to put a handle on it, which is a workable clay, and I don't score and slip it, that handle is going to fall off 99% chance. Okay? So we want to learn to score and slip starting from the beginning. We want things to be stuck together. So we score it, add a little slip. Now, we're going to add a little bit to that. So I have that seam scored and slipped, but now I'm going to do something called stitching. So I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to pull clay from one side to the other, like this. And it's like taking clay that's butted up against each other and running a thread through it. So we're literally stitching the clay together, bringing surface area together. So that. And then one more thing, and then I'm going to pass this around and I'll show you, is on the inside, I'm going to put a little coil. Not everything needs all of these things. You're just going to have to kind of decide what needs what. So I'm going to push a coil in there. Okay, now I'm going to compress or clean up the outside on just half of this so you can see what stitching looks like. So do that down here. I'm going to push out, and I'm going to clean up half of the coil on the inside because it's kind of hard to see while I'm doing this. So we'll pass that around. So we'll start that over here. Pass that around. Okay. What else do we need to know about scoring and slipping? It's super important that we learn to compress our clay because it's going to open, and it's going to open quickly. Now, as we work on things, we're going to have little cracks. We're going to have little bumps. We're going to have inconsistencies, and I'm going to show you some of that today. There's a couple of things you need to know. One, we're using recycled clay to practice. When we do our actual project, we're going to use, hopefully it'll be here end of next week, we'll use boxed new clay, and it's a tighter particle clay, and it doesn't crack as much as this does. We use mostly recycled on the wheel because it works really, really well back there. But I have inconsistencies. It's chunky, and most of you are going to go, I need that smooth, or some of you will, and you're going to want it smooth. And so you're going to go, where is my sponge with a lot of water? And you're going to come in here and put a lot of water on here to make it smooth, and it'll make it smooth. But what's happening is we're taking clay like this, we add a lot of water, the clay swells because more water goes in there, and when it dries, it opens up and cracks. So your brain is going to say, I want this smooth, I need to smooth it out with water. I'm going to tell you what you're going to do is compress it. You're going to manipulate that clay, push it, and then when it is leather hard, we can come in with any number of tools and clean it up, and then take just a lightly wet sponge and smooth it out. But if we do that now, you're going to open your clay up and it's going to want to crack. So if you or your friend your neighbor is grabbing a sponge or a spray bottle and really kind of going to town on their clay, remind them they're causing more harm than good in the long run. It might look better now, but in a couple of days it's going to want to open up and crack. Probably. Okay, so we're going to create a little slab. I call them vessels, just a little slab piece. And it's going to look something like this. Okay, this is kind of what we showed on the board today and last time, is either a body or a neck. This is the same thing. I started to create shoulders on it. Okay, so what we're going to learn today and then practice on Monday is going to push us into our first project. So I'm going to put this down here. This will allow me to get a nice straight line. Put that there. Cut that. Just leave it there because that's straight, which makes this a 90-degree angle. I'm going to cut here, straight up. Then I'm going to move this down so it lines up with this edge right here. Okay? And when I move that down, it lines up with that edge. I can put this there. And this line here is parallel with my bottom cut, or in my case, my top cut. So I'll pull this away and show you. So now I have a parallel piece of clay, right? You can see that. And then I'm going to cut over here. And I do that by taking my top or bottom, lining it up with there, so I have a 90-degree angle. If you don't want to be so exact, we're just practicing, it's just clay, and you can just kind of cut a square. So you could really come in here and be like, well, it's probably close enough. Okay, whatever works for you. All right, so as I do this, I'm gonna show you a couple of things. So I'm gonna bend clay, and if I just grab clay, especially this clay, and just bend it, it tends to want to crack pretty quickly, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of break and massage those particles so that it will wrap around. Okay, it's starting to crack a little bit, but not as much, and wrap around. Now, you get to decide, do I want my seam to show? Can you see how there's a big overlap? Okay, so we can see that. Or do you want it to not show? And there's no overlap on this one. I don't care which one you do. Depends on, I guess, where you're going with your project. But we're going to show you how to make it so it disappears or doesn't overlap. So we're going to cut on an angle. So we're going to cut diagonally this way. So in and out. So it kind of looks like this. I cut in and I cut out. And that way, when it wraps around, and I'm going to send this around, it'll overlap, and there's the same thickness on both sides, so all the way through. So pass that. It's not stuck together, just kind of be mellow with it. And I'm going to do that on my big piece here. So I'm going to cut that in and out. Now, you could eyeball it and just go for it, or you can put your tool up there and run that against something that's a little more substantial. It doesn't matter to me. Again, it's clay. You can manipulate it into place for the most part. All right, I'm going to come here and cut that. All right, now I need to score this, because anytime clay touches, it's got to be scored and slipped, right? So we're going to come here. I like the serrated rib. For workable clay, I like it. For leather hard, I almost always use my needle tool because I can get a more aggressive score mark. But we're not working with leather hard right now, so it's okay. Okay, one little bit of slip here. So something you need to make note of, score both sides. Two things that go together get scored. Only one needs to be slipped. You can score both or slip both, but you don't need to. All right, now, on thickness of clay, do you see how my clay is standing up? Okay. If it's thinner than that or taller than that, it's going to want to slump. And so if we make a taller something, which we'll get to mugs and stuff later, it might want to be a little bit thicker than this, but for the most part, this is a great thickness. Any thinner than that, and it's not going to want to support its own weight. It'll crumble. So I'm going to massage this around, get that pushed together. They call this zippering, so you start at the bottom or the top and kind of zip that together. Yeah, and it's cracking just a little bit, no stress, because we can compress it. Now some of you again will want to go, I'm going to smooth that out with water, but that's not what we want. We want to smooth that out with compression. It's better. All right, this is where I like to use my wood knife. I can go on the inside and smooth that out, compress that together. It's okay if it's a little chunky. I'm kind of just working through that. Okay, so that's one thing you need to do on Monday, is make a slab tube of some sort. Oval, circular, a little taller, about that size, maybe no shorter than that. It could be bigger, so it's more, has a bigger circumference. You choose. Don't make it huge, don't make it super tiny, okay? Because we're just learning how to get this clay to work together. So we'll set that aside. So now I have the start to 3 little sculptures. You see how quick you can turn that into a human body, right? With just a little bit of manipulation. And we'll actually talk about that either next Wednesday or next Friday. Okay, all this clay that's sitting here, make sure that you wedge it back up so you can use it. If you just let it sit out, it's going to dry out pretty quickly, and then we just have to recycle it. It's not that big of a deal, but don't try to put it away. So we wedge this up. I'm going to use it. Well, let's see what I'm going to do next. Oh, I'm making a coil next. So I need a little slab. And a chunk for a coil. As we're working, be mindful of your work area. Make sure there's not a lot of crumbs, especially really dry ones. The first project is a little bit tough just because we're so crammed together. Once we get split, so half of you will be on the wheels, half of you will be here, it opens up pretty quickly, so it's kind of nice. Okay, so I'm going to slab out of this. Pat that down. I don't need a big slab. Throw that down. As I'm going, if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay. And then we're going to turn this into a coil. So I'm just going to pat this in to kind of a log. I'm going to squeeze it together. Now, if it starts to dry and crack, where did my spray bottle go? Wait a minute, that spray bottle. We'll have more spray bottles out. Thank you. So what you can do, you want this to start at about, it's going to be about twice as thick as a marker. So about as thick as that stick there. And then we're going to roll it. Now when I roll it, I'll show you how to do this first. You're going to start at your fingertips and you're going to throw it through your hand. It's going to barely touch. It's going to hit your wrist and then you're going to throw it back. You're going to go back and forth. If you push on it the whole time, you're going to create a square. Okay, so you want to just throw it back and forth. And you want to throw it far. So if you have stuff in front of you, you're going to want to move it or move. Now, make sure it's not cracking. We just spray a little water and we roll it into that.
I thought you weren't supposed to spray it with water.
So what you don't want to do is soak it in water, okay? What I'm doing here is I put a little water down because it's starting to crack, and it soaks in, and while I'm compressing it, it mixes that water into the clay. So that's not a big deal. If there was a puddle of water, that would be a problem. But it's just a little bit of water. But great observation. You're contradicting yourself already, Mr. Jones. Welcome to my life. These coils, for what we're doing, should be about the width of your pinky. Right in there somewhere. Skinny pinkies, fat pinkies, it doesn't really matter. Okay, for a coil piece, there's going to be some requirements, and let's see what they are. The first requirement, it needs to be about 5 coils high. Okay, we're not putting one coil down and being like, I know how to do coils. 5 coils high. 2, it needs to have transitions. So it needs to go in and then out, or out and then in. Okay. 3, I don't want to see the coils. So I'll pass this around. You can see the coils on the inside. That's fine. I don't want to see those on the outside. Now this is at the beginning stage. It still needs to get leather hard, where we can come in and smooth it out just a little bit. But if I did that now, it would be a problem. So look at that. Okay, it doesn't matter, circle, oval. I wouldn't do a geometric shape, triangle, square. You could, but I'm not going to. You could do a kidney, but let's just do a nice little circular thing. Okay, that goes there. This gets wedged up and put back in here. All right, so anytime clay's going to touch, it needs to be scored, right?
Yeah.
Now, one of the reasons why I would say use a building board, when you're done, you can just lift it and move it. But 2, I'm going to be able to turn this really easily, just like that. So I'm going to come in here and score this. And I'm going to score the top of this. And I may not use all of this at once. And I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to score the bottom of this. Why would I score the bottom too? Yeah, because we're just going to wrap it up and up and up. We could wrap it and cut it, and that's perfectly fine. You can wrap it and just keep going. The one thing you need to be aware of is you don't want to have a seam lined up. So if I wrap it and cut it, and it goes right here, and that's where my seam is, I want my seam somewhere else next time, because I don't want those seams to line up, because that creates a weak spot. So I'm going to start by putting that in there and start to press it down, coil that around, and get to right there. And again, you get to decide, do I want to cut this so that it creates a seam right there, or do I want to wrap this up? And I want to wrap it up. So I'm going to bring some slip over. And squeeze that in. It's okay if it cracks. And then I want to add some. Makes it a whole lot easier to score this from the start than have to come in right now and score it. Okay, we'll level that off right there. So I have 3 layers. roughly. That guy's a little crazy. Okay, I'm going to do a couple of things. One, I'm going to squish it together inside and out while that board moves around. And then I'm going to clean up my coils because I don't want to see those coils. I want them to be smoother. So you can use your finger, you can use your wood knife, whatever works for you. Really, it works best if you put it on a side here and just kind of push down so you can see how we're starting to get that to clean up there. Now, how do I say this? Some people lean towards what we call perfection or crisp and clean, or they're very particular about how they want things, okay? There is nothing wrong with being particular, but if you come in right now and you're like, no, I can't do this because it is too chunky, we're just learning. We're just learning how to do this. This is not the clay that I would do a final project with. Okay, we're going to use a different clay for that. But because we're just learning, just learn with it. But even with the other clay, you're going to have bumps and things that may not seem right to you. And let me explain it in a different way. Some people start something and they feel like as they go it has to look finished before they move on to the next thing. That's not what we want. We want to get the big things done and then we'll come in and refine them into the little things. Okay? If you come in here and try to finesse this into being perfectly smooth right now, by the time you get to the other side, it's going to be dry. So try not to do that. Be like, I'm going to get the shape there. I'm going to make sure that it is stuck together. And then from there, I can come in and work it later when it's leather hard, because you're going to have a better result when it's leather hard to get it cleaned up. So on Monday when you do this, yours will look kind of like that. And then on Wednesday, we'll open them back up. They'll start to be hardened up. I'll show you how you can clean those up just a little bit to make them a little bit better. Yeah, I don't want you to have to lower your standards, because some people really are like, I need this to be perfect. You don't need to lower your standards. You just need to put them off for a minute, if that makes sense. And I'm looking around. I'm not looking at anyone like going, oh, you are a perfectionist. Because I don't know. I'm not. Okay. I like chunk and I like texture and I like inconsistencies and I like leaving things half done. So it's just the way I like it. Okay, so we get 3 up. We start to manipulate those coils. It's okay that the inside is not manipulated. If you were making a bowl, I would say manipulate those to make them smooth, but we're not. Now, I want this to go in, which means I need to score the inside edge of my piece. If I just put it on top, it's not going to be completely scored. So I'm going to score in. You can use your serrated rib. Again, this putting on a board just makes it easier to rotate around, like so. I'm going to put some slip on there. All right, we're going to score this one. I'm going to cut it because I don't need that much. Oh, hopefully that's enough. And I'm going to push that down and squeeze it so that it starts to lift up at the same time. So we're kind of flattening this out. Press that together. You see how that's starting to move inward? Okay. Okay, use your finger, your thumb to smooth that out. You can stitch it if you need to. And maybe one part needs to just be compressed, another part stitched. You choose. It's getting it sealed and worked together that matters. But it needs to be more than just a surface sealing. It needs to be deeper than that. Be a great time to talk about high school relationships versus right? Surface versus deeper, more meaningful. Maybe high school is deep. No. Whatever. You do you. Your parents, their problem. Hey, thanks for projecting. I got on the football feed today. So my baby picture. Yeah, someone's like, "Is this you?" And I'm like, "Oh, that is the most adorable chunky baby I've ever seen." Me.
Well, yeah, I know that.
Who was it? I don't know. Some kid. Now we're gonna go out. So that's not enough to wrap out. So I'm gonna roll that out a little thinner. Rescore it. And I'm gonna score the outside here. And this would be like if you're making a little flower pot or something. Also, it could be if you're making like shoulders or something like that. You're gonna go out. So far, any questions? No? Usually this is where people are like, "You're doing great, Mr. Jones, keep it up." I'm like, "Oh, thanks for the..." Thanks, Isaac. Yeah. I mean, I'll never give you guys compliments, but I expect compliments, so. I know, that seems a little off, but sucks for you. All right, so we're pushing that out. So now it goes in, it goes out. Just do your best to get that manipulated together. Okay, you can stitch it. I'm not going to go much more with that. If you want, you can grab a paddle of some sort. Kind of paddle this into place. That helps to do what? Did I not tell you the word of the day? Compression. Oh, I did. That helps to compress it. Okay. And again, you can come in and stitch this. Work that with your wood knife or your fingers. Any questions from there? Okay, so we have, I sent one around, there's another one there. Right, and when it's leather hard, I'll come in and I'll show you how you're going to clean that up. But you want it to be this basic shape so you can do whatever. So this would be an actual pot, right? But if we're going for something else later. Okay, any questions there? Yeah.
We're gonna fire these?
The ones we do on Monday, no. We are just learning how to make stuff. Which I'll bring it to the next one. If you flip your paper over real quick, open it up and flip it over, it tells you what our next note-taking assignment's going to be. Yeah. Oh, who has an extra paper? Anyone? 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 You throw one up here. And so it says, let's see, right there. It says, note-taking sheet for figurative sculpting using slab, pinch, coil pot techniques. And then if you flip it over from there, you get some little sketching spots. And on the top there, it gives you some of the criteria that we're going to do. We're going to make figurative sculptures, but we're learning the basics with the coil pots, pinch pots, the slab pieces, and how to score and slip. And then we're going to apply them to a sculpture, which will be great. So as you're looking at that, it says it can be human or animal full body or just a head. You're going to choose what this looks like. And you're going to create something that's kind of fun. I'm going to show you some things you can do. And then individually, you can work through those things. It can be, what else to say, cartoonish or grotesque, like aliens and things like that. There's all kinds of figurative things we can do. So, keep that in mind. All right, let's move on. Pinch pots. So, you're going to make 2 pinch pots. Now, you take a chunk of clay, and it's about 3 pounds. You need half of that for these pinch pots. This might be a little much. And then you're going to cut that in half. So you need about 3/4 of a pound of clay for each pinch pot. And you're going to turn them into little balls like this. So we'll get it in the camera so you can see. Now, when we make pinch pots, there's a couple of things you should pay attention to. One, if we try to move the clay really fast, it cracks. So we're going to manipulate the clay. Our thumbs go on top of the ball. We're going to push down about halfway into the ball itself. And it creates like those little 2 marks. Then we're going to rotate it and we're going to create 2 more marks. So it kind of creates a semicircle, right? And then from there, you're going to push down, you're going to push your thumb over, you're going to push in and lift up and tilt your hand back in. So just watch. So you're going to push down and out, you're going to squeeze in and up. If you don't squeeze in and up, you create this wide bowl. We don't want a wide bowl, we want a semicircle. So you're going to push out and then back up. So every time you're lifting up and in. And we can do this fairly quickly. So pushing out, pushing in, and lifting up and in. Now, as you do this, you're moving clay, but you're also compressing it and keeping it strong as we go. If you go too thin at the top, it's almost certainly going to flop outwards. So make sure you keep it pretty uniform all the way around. Okay, once I get it going, sometimes I'll take my hands and run both hands at the same time. But my fingers are pulling in. So my outside fingers. You're just going to kind of work this. You want this to be a little bit thicker than that. Okay? Or about as thick as your pinky, maybe a little bit thinner. Okay, set that aside and do one over here. Get that moving. Always pulling up and in. If you get something that goes out, again, it's because your thumb is heavy and moving outward. You've got to, on purpose, bring that in. So on Monday, if your neighbor has a wide bowl, be like, hey, grab another chunk of clay, and if you're getting it, help them. Why do I keep telling you all of this? I won't be here Monday, so you're going to be all on your own. So you'll have a sub. Cassie will be here. Lucky Cassie. But we're going to keep moving that. Now on Monday, as you're doing this, you're going to make a slab piece. You're going to score and slip it. You're going to make a coil piece. You're going to score and slip those. You're going to make some of these here. You're going to wedge some clay. And we're just practicing. We're learning. Now, when I come back on Wednesday, I expect to see you've done something. Perfection. I expect perfection from you. Thank you. If you mess up on this, we can figure out how to do it. You can just throw that in the box there. Perfect. Thank you. If you're like, it's not going where I want, okay, do something else. Okay, and kind of work with that. All right, before I keep talking, I'm gonna put these together like this. Now, there's a little bit of a dip. It comes in like this. There's two things I can do. One, I can pull it out just a little bit. Two, I can score and slip that together and then run a coil around it and then smooth that out. Either one works fine. So I'm gonna just push that out just a little bit. Okay, close enough. Just remember it's clay. You can move it around. Now, if there's any big gaps, I'll just cut that little tab off so that it drops down. So right here, I'll just cut that little bit so that top part cuts down. For the most part, it'll go together. So we'll just come in here, trim that up, and now we're going to score it and slip it. If I didn't say this, I'm sure I did. The serrated rib works really well in workable clay and not so well in other hard clay. I feel like I should be making to the music. Make sure that everything kind of sits on there. That needs to come out just a little bit more. Okay, get that pushed together. And then what technique would I use to get that sealed up well? Stitching, right? I just scored it. I slipped it, and now I'm going to stitch it. So we're just going to come in here and stitch that. Now I'm closing it off, which means I'm sealing it up, which means there will be air in there. That helps us now, but you're going to have to poke a hole in it sooner or later. For most of you, if you wrap it up in a bag, Monday, Wednesday you can poke a hole in it. If you don't wrap it up in a bag, it'll dry out really fast and it'll want to crack. So you can come in and smooth that out. I'm going to put a coil on it. So you can come in with a coil, real small one. That'll help kind of seal up that seam. And you choose score and slipping it or just compressing it. I'm going to push that into place. Start from the middle and move out. And that'll really help seal that up. It's not really my jam, but I could get into it, I guess. Okay. Sweet. Got plenty of time. All right, so I'm kind of filling that in, smoothing that out. Wood knife works well. If I didn't say this, metal tools don't smooth out very well because the metal sticks where the wood will release better. So if you grab a metal tool and try to do it, you can do it, but it'll tend to want to stick a little bit. So whenever you use a metal tool, you've got to use the edge, not the flat part. So in this case, I can come in with the edge, but the flat part's going to want to stick. Same with our ribs and stuff. Okay, so it's all right, but because there is air in there, it's pushing back. So I can start to kind of push it around and get it into another shape. I can come in and pat it softly, not violently. Starting to look like one of the clones from Clone Wars. Mr. Potato Head. It could be that. And on Monday, if you get this stuff done and you want to start playing around, you go right ahead and play around with it. Playing with clay will teach you more about clay than just about anything. If you just kind of mess around with the purpose. So you could come in here and be like, there's some eyes there, and come down here, use my wood tool to push here. Again, this is a quick version of a face. It's not anatomically correct, proportionally correct. We start to get the nose. I'm going to put some nostrils in. Okay, we start to get a face shape. All right, a little bit going on there. When it's leather hard, because it pushes so much right now, I would score and slip some more to the nose because it's so flat. If I was on the inside of this, I would actually push out on that nose to help it to go out. But I'm not going to mess with that too much. I always say that, and then I start messing with it. To do real face sculptures, you start with an understanding of bone structure and muscle structure, because that's what actually gives your face shape. But we're not gonna go that far into it. I'm gonna put a mouth on there, and then this is a quick mouth. So the bottom goes there. It's a happy little guy. The top's gonna go here. The top of a mouth is almost like an M or a bird if you're painting. Put that up there. Again, quick versions of things. We'll talk more about this next week a little bit. Use your tools to smooth that out. Get the basic shapes going. And pretty quickly you can have a little face, right? It's a character of some sort, kind of hollow and soulless. Maybe a self-portrait. So there's a neck, so we could put it there or put it there. You see how that's not that far off from what we've been seeing on the board? Okay. So we're going to practice on Monday. We're going to practice on Wednesday, add a little bit of information, talk about cleaning it up, and then we'll do a project, and it'll be great. It'll be a lot of fun. While you're thinking today, Monday, Wednesday, at home, on the back, I want you to sketch out ideas. Okay? You could turn this, it doesn't have to be a human head. You could turn this into a bear or a wolf, or I know people like other things. If you want to look at facial anatomy of a cyborg or whatever, I don't really care. Figurative sculptures. We're just kind of messing around with the idea of the figure and the face and some fun stuff. So you could take that here, put a head on it, put some legs on it, and it'll be a little pig, okay, or a bear or something like that, right? Doesn't take that much. Big shapes, kind of like our drawings, big shapes. Big shapes, and we can get there pretty quickly. Do you have any questions? This is still soft. Okay, rest of the day, we have 25 minutes. That clock's a little fast. You're going to